Is this a Switch 2 motherboard? Probably! Hey everyone, Andre here, and Happy New Year! I just got back from my own holiday vacation last night, and I'm still pretty exhausted, so if I make any mistakes in this video, please forgive me. We're just gonna roll with them, because I'm tired of trying to redo this video over the past hour or so. In any case, there's a lot to talk about, including some rumors that I'll touch on at the end of the video, as they're by far the iffiest thing here, but some of them could be pretty interesting if they end up being true. For now, though, I want to start off real quick on something that happened as I was leaving on my trip, so we haven't covered it yet. Though you probably saw these supposed leaked images of the hardware itself for the Switch 2, including the actual Switch 2 unit, though sans a Joy-Con here, and the dock itself, though sans the back panel seemingly. So these caused quite a kerfuffle online, as a lot of people thought these looked fake, mostly based on the background. So what the consensus seems to be right now is that the hardware itself is probably real, especially as it lines up with everything else we've seen based on all the accessory manufacturer leaks. However, the backgrounds themselves are probably AI generated in order to protect wherever these pictures were taken. So yeah, once again, that assuming these are real, what they seem to be, it basically lines up with everything else we've learned about the Switch 2, though the dock, I believe, was new information, and it seems to be a little differently shaped than the current Switch dock, which is interesting, or Switch dock. Now, based on all these leaks and, accessory leaks and these leaked images here, we've had some pretty good mock-ups from users in the community, and I want to point out one from this user, HurtsBurts on Twitter, who created these awesome mock-ups, which again may not be entirely accurate, but probably offer a really good idea of what to expect in the final Switch 2 hardware. So here's the Switch 2 itself with the Joy-Cons attached. Here's the Joy-Cons independently. Here is the supposed dock, including the supposed Switch 2 logo, and here it is all, docked and in separated form. So again, there might be some minor differences when Nintendo finally reveals this thing, but based on everything we're seeing, this is very likely to offer a really good idea what to expect from the Nintendo Switch 2. So shout out to HurtsBurts for an awesome mock-up. Alright, now let's get to one of the more recent leaks, being the motherboard itself. Now, I'll be honest, I don't find this all that interesting myself. Maybe some more of you tech heads out there do. It supposedly, confirms a few details about the exact hardware makeup they have. But in case there is any doubt, I do want to give a shout out to this user, Icy Concentration on Reddit, who pointed out this lines up with a previous leak apparently, which people were more skeptical of back then, pretty much perfectly, meaning that this brand new leak is probably extremely accurate. Now, something else that this leak caused was another kerfuffle online of people debating, what this means for the system's power. Now, I do want to give a shout out to John Lindman from Digital Foundry for addressing some of these arguments head on, specifically this one from Tom Warren, which seemingly was inspired by the leak of the motherboard, because Tom says there are so many rumors floating around about the Switch 2, but the funniest one is about being as powerful as a PS4 Pro, suggesting it's going to be nowhere near that. Whereas John suggests instead it actually could be, especially in some respects, if not even more powerful than the PS4 Pro. So at this point, I'd say we're just gonna have to wait and see to finally, see for ourselves how close, if not more powerful than the PS4 Pro, this may end up being. But I do want to give a shout out to John, who knows their stuff from, again, Digital Foundry, suggesting that it's going to be probably at the least a competent system and a substantial step up from the Switch 1, which I think at the least it has to be. There's no way this is not going to be a notable step up from the Switch 1. And to that point is a report from today, or yesterday I suppose, from Laura K. Dale, who found a new patent from Nintendo. It was apparently filed back in June, but it was only unveiled or revealed a couple of days ago, which goes into the DLSS style AI upscaling the system is supposed to have. Again, this is backing up all those rumors we've had for quite some time at this point. And apparently the patent does mention 4K resolution, suggesting the Switch 2 may actually be capable of that thanks to this DLSS, meaning rather than the Switch 2 rendering games at a native 4K, it can use the DLSS upscaling to avoid the intense hardware that would otherwise be required, which could save on battery power as well as texture sizes that Laura K. Dale points out. Because one of the things that this technology can be used for is reducing game file size. So rather than exporting textures at an insane, 4K, gigabyte size resolution, whatever it ends up being, or gigabyte file size for the resolution, they can instead render them at low resolutions, consuming less space on the cartridge to avoid higher prices for the manufacturers and possibly for consumers in the end too. So this is all good news no matter how you cut it, because it suggests again that the Switch 2 could have some really great visuals without causing massive either game card sizes or download file sizes for those buying games off the eShop. Finally, let's go over those rumors I mentioned earlier, as there are quite a few of them. I won't touch on all of them here, so I'll link to the post in the description below if you want to take a look at them for yourself, as these apparently come to us by way of an insider on a Chinese message board. They're apparently well-known and reputable, but they are reporting what they've heard themselves from a variety of sources, which were consolidated by a user on Family Boards. So again, take all this with a grain of salt, as some may be accurate, some may not be. They could all be inaccurate, or maybe they're all somehow true. Who knows, but let's go over some of the more interesting ones, I think. And starting off with the fact that major developers have apparently had access to a Switch 2 dev kit for about 2 years now at this point, with indie developers, the smaller ones, having it for about a year right now. So that makes a lot of sense to me, because, developers are going to have needed it for at least a year to have games ready for what could be a launch in the next few months, assuming that, we find out what this actually is in the near future, which we probably will be. Next up is the fact that Joy-Cons are apparently not included, at least for the indie developers, or Switch 2 Joy-Cons, meaning those developers are using Switch 1 Joy-Cons for testing, which could indicate backwards compatibility for Joy-Cons, which would be amazing, both for the existing Switch library, but hopefully that means that you can also use Switch 1 Joy-Cons on the Switch 2. Again, this is not confirmed, but I would love it if I don't have to buy 6 more of those things for multiplayer, or, Pro Controllers as well, hopefully. So here's hoping that the Joy-Cons and Pro Controllers are in fact backwards compatible for the Switch 2. Next up, let's talk about power, as some indie developers have noted that the system workload appears to be a little bit worse than the PS4 Pro, than the PS4 Pro dev kits. But they are saying that they didn't optimize the games incredibly well, so that may be part of the reason. So again, like I said earlier, we're just going to wait and see for the games themselves to actually see how powerful this thing is. Next is that some indie developers have actually released Switch 2 games, or games made on the Switch 2 dev kit, already on the Switch 1, which is pretty interesting. In fact, apparently the eShop submission page for the Switch 2 is the exact same as Switch 1, suggesting they may both be using the same store. Here's hoping it runs better on Switch 2. I imagine it will, but that part's a little disappointing because the Switch 2's, or the Switch eShop isn't that great to me, but again, maybe with better hardware, I'll be more open to it. Next is, this is probably the more far out one here, and there is a lot of assumptions about this, but apparently there are some outsourced assets that look like a cart with a driver's seat and a platform for another person to stand on, making the person speculate that this could be a new Mario Kart, a new Double Dash style Mario Kart, but they also note that it could be for an entirely different game, like a new Sonic Racing game, which, we now know was announced, which didn't seem to show much of anything that tied with this, but we didn't see much of it at all even. So who knows, maybe it's Double Dash, maybe it's something else, maybe it's nothing at all, but if I see a reference to a potential Double Dash sequel, I gotta mention it. Next up, speaking of Mario, apparently someone that this source had heard, or had heard from, they had heard that there was a new 2D Mario game in development that apparently is recreating a scene from the Mario movie, which is interesting, in which one player is in the foreground, another player, local or remote, is in the background to fight through a stage together. So the only part that reminds me from the movie is a part where Mario and DK are working together to reach Peach and on Bowser's castle. So they have a quick scene where they're running together. DK's in the background, Mario's in the foreground. Could they be replicating that? Because that would be amazing, and that would be a really fun twist for what may be a new Mario 2D platforming game. So yeah, hook me up with that, especially if it's based on the Mario movie. I would love that, or even if it's just inspired by it, I'm still there for it. Next up, there are some outsourced assets that seem to be from Monolith Soft's Project X Zone with Nintendo characters. It is speculated to be a Smash-like concept. So hey, I'd be there for more, Smash-like games, more crossover-like games like that. I don't know again whether this is going to end up being a product or not, but could be interesting. Speaking of products, the dev team of ARMS seems to be working on a Custom Robo sequel. Now this is one I'm not buying. Custom Robo, we have not heard from in like, what, 20 years? I don't think it's a particularly great seller, if I remember correctly, even on the GameCube. And I would be very surprised if we see a sequel. But, hey, if we do, then that lends a lot of credence to everything else here. Apparently an Assassin's Creed is in development for Switch 2, which isn't a huge surprise. There apparently won't be a Virtual Fighter 6 for Switch 2. Someone spotted a game that looks like Persona 5 Strikers or Persona 5 R, whatever that is again, which I don't think is all that interesting, considering I think at least one of those, if not both, are already on Switch 1. There was apparently a Capcom internal demo of Resident Evil 7 for Switch 1, but it was eventually cancelled, so that's not that exciting. but the poster speculated or hinted that the Resident Evil series should come to Switch 2, which I think is pretty obvious, even if not RE7, which isn't even the most recent version. So that's really not all that surprising, honestly, and I'm sure we'll be seeing more Resident Evil, especially the system is, you know, more capable of running modern games on it. And I would fully expect there to be plenty of games coming to Switch 2 from, you know, Series S and X and PS5. God, so many things to keep track of. Jeez. Anyways, everyone, that is just to catch you up on all the latest leaks and rumors. Assuming nothing has happened since I started making this video. I hope this was informative for you. I'll link to everything in the description below if you want to read more about all of this. But what do you think of this? Are you more or less excited for Switch 2? Do you like the potential of these rumors? Are you excited by the motherboard? Let me know what you think in the comments below. With that, Happy New Year once again, and we'll catch you later. Bye, everyone.